All right, what's up? What's up? What's up? This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Happy January 30th, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope everybody's having a great day so far. We have a lot to get into. Obviously, as I jumped on yesterday right after my stream, 5 minutes after I ended my live stream yesterday, the news broke that the Eagles hired Sean Mannion to be their offensive coordinator. Obviously, Sean Mannion, career backup quarterback, last 2 years has spent time on the Packers offensive staff. So there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of thought that he's the next up and coming bright offensive mind. And one can only hope. An Eagles fan can only hope that is the case. But what's really interesting to me with the way that this is kind of all played out is Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are really doing everything they possibly can to make sure that Nick Sirianni takes full credit for the coaching changes that have occurred. So if this fails, it's going to be on Nick's head, and if it succeeds, great. I will say, and just as proof to that is, they had Nick Sirianni make the statement once firing Kevin Patullo, and they also made Nick Sirianni put out a full 3-paragraph statement on the hiring of Sean Mannion. Which I just thought was interesting. It's not something that you necessarily see. It's not something that, as an Eagles fan, I've seen very often. The head coach do. So that just insinuates to me that they're making sure that Nick Sirianni is going to be accountable. Nick Sirianni is going to be accountable for either the success or failure of new offensive coordinator Sean Mannion. I will say this, though, not even 24 hours after they did go ahead and hire Sean Mannion as offensive coordinator, the Philadelphia Eagles also made former Bucs offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard the pass game coordinator. So that, I think, is a really good move. I know that they had Mannion and they had Grizzard in for second round interviews. So obviously their thought process was to bring in Mannion and then see if you could get Grizzard as a pass game coordinator. That in my opinion, that's a move that I like. I like that move. I don't think that there's anything wrong with bringing in Grizzard to be the pass game coordinator. He did some decent things with Baker Mayfield and the offense in Tampa Bay. The other interesting thing to note is obviously the Philadelphia Eagles were like number 2, I think, in hitch routes run by wide receivers last season, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers, by that matter, were near the very bottom as far as hitch routes are concerned. So it's most likely that we're not going to see these, inept hitch routes run all the time in the offense this season. So that's one of the things that I am excited about. But the potential's there. It's with the hiring of Sean Mannion, doesn't have any play calling experience, doesn't have very much coaching experience. Played for many different coaches as a backup quarterback. However, he did play for Clint Kubiak. He does have experience playing for Sean McVay. He does have experience playing for Kevin O'Connell. All of whom are really good offensive minds. So that's the thing, is like you hope that Sean Mannion can kind of bring all of that knowledge with him, when it comes to being an offensive coordinator. And obviously, there is, everybody wants to give him credit for the way that Malik Willis performed last season, in light of Jordan Love's injury. everybody wants to give Sean Mannion credit for that. And maybe it's warranted. My thing about it though is like Malik Willis was a quarterback that had a lot of potential. I still don't think that like Malik Willis is a bad prospect. He was a first round prospect coming out of college. He's still young. I still think the tools are there. I just don't think that teams have gotten the best. I don't think the teams that he's been with have gotten the best out of the tools that he possesses. But if Sean Mannion was able to do that, this past season, that's interesting. So it's like it's not a shocker to me that Malik Willis was able to handle himself a little bit better than he had been. But you got to ask yourself is like, how much of that is on the player? How much of that is on the coach? Jordan Love was already Jordan Love before Sean Mannion started coaching him. So like, we gotta, those are some of the things that we kind of have to be a little bit careful with. You know what I mean? So, Jordan Love or Jalen Hurts, is already Jalen Hurts, but like maybe there is some insight that Sean Mannion brings, to the quarterback room and to the offense that like, will just help this offense go to the next level. That's, and that's kind of what we're all really looking for, right? Is like, we want this offense to go to the next level. I think as I said, like, I think the hiring of Josh Grizzard, as a pass game coordinator, I think that was a good move in the sense of Sean Mannion. This is going to be his first time being a play caller in the NFL. And so you want to bring a guy in like Josh Grizzard, who has offensive coordinator experience, who has play calling experience, to come in and be able to help him out, and bounce ideas, and kind of be that sounding board of like bouncing ideas off of one another and things of that nature. What we just gotta hope is like, as of right now, it seems like Mannion's gonna be able to have full control of the offense. But that doesn't mean it's gonna stay that. It doesn't mean it's gonna stay that way. There's a lot of speculation, obviously, that the offense isn't gonna change much because the quarterback isn't gonna change. And maybe that's the case. But here's what we can say is like, we don't necessarily need the offense to change much. We need the offensive scheme to be more efficient and be a little bit more creative, so that it opens up avenues for our starting quarterback to be a little bit more effective, which we know that Jalen Hurts can do, and we know that the rest of the playmakers. There was an article saying that bringing in Mannion and Josh Grizzard actually might mean better things for Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is obviously we've talked about this a ton, and we know how talented Devontae Smith is, but like, again, he would be a number one on more than half the teams in the league. And obviously, as I said, leading up to the hiring of the offensive coordinator, is like, we need to bring in a guy who is gonna get the faith of the players, and then also a guy that can bring consistency, a guy that can bring a little bit more creativity, and a guy that has a better chance of getting the most out of the talent on this team, because we just haven't been able to do that with whether it be Nick Sirianni or Kevin Patullo. So we'll just have to see. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, obviously this week it was the East West Shrine game, where Sean Mannion was elected to be the offensive coordinator. And once upon a time, first round quarterback prospect, Garrett Nussmeier. Is it Garrett Nussmeier, or is it? Hold on. Yeah, Garrett Nussmeier, once upon a time was viewed as an early first round prospect. However, he did have a down season at LSU, and so it kind of his draft stock kind of fell off quite a bit. But he did have a good showing at the East West Shrine game over the last few days. So, and throughout the practices. So there is belief that he's kind of regaining momentum. Here's my thing, and I've said this before, and it's not one of the things that like I want to see happen, or I prefer to have happen, or like I'm not even. But if like somebody like Garrett Nussmeier falls to us maybe in the third round, or maybe even the second round, if he continues to build a lot of draft stock, and then he falls to like the second round, I feel like that's a question that they really got to ask themselves is like, okay, do we bring in Garrett Nussmeier to compete and see what he's got? Not compete for the starting spot, obviously, but like, because obviously that's gonna stay with Jalen. But like, I just mean bring in a guy that can be your insurance policy, just in the case that Jalen gets hurt. And then just talking about that entire conversation anyway is that there obviously is speculation that Tanner McKee is going to get traded this offseason. So it's like we do have to start having those conversations about who the backup quarterback is going to be, and like who are they going to replace Tanner McKee with. But let me know what you guys think. Please hit the like button, the subscribe, and then also the notification bell if you want to keep up with any updates throughout the week. Drop a comment in the comment box, and I will be sure to get to it at some point throughout the day, or just jump in, leave a chat in the live chat box, and we can start to get talking about anything that you want to talk about. But how do you guys feel about the new hires? So far from what I've seen, I did put out a poll yesterday, and so far from what I've seen, it looks like everybody's pretty stoked about the Sean Mannion hire. Then there's also some that are a little bit on edge about it, just because of the lack of experience and the fact that he doesn't have any play calling experience. But they do, there is a glimmer of positivity in the sense that throughout league circles he is considered very, very bright and very, very smart, and and has a good knowledge of the game on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out. And then obviously, like I said, bringing in Josh Grizzard, who has play calling experience, who has been the Bucs offense coordinator for the past couple seasons, and can bring further knowledge into the offensive, the offensive staff room. It's very interesting to me what they're doing. Obviously, they can't go with a bunch of nobodies, right? We hired Sean Mannion, who has no play calling experience, but then immediately brought in a former offensive coordinator with plenty of experience to be in a lesser role. It just reminds me of 2017 a little bit, when the Eagles brought in Frank Reich, and they brought in I forgot the QB coach's name. But anyway, there were a bunch of hires with really good experience. Now, obviously, Frank Reich and Sean Mannion, not the same, but it just has that feel where it's like they're going to make these staffing changes so that that would kind of insinuate that each one of them is kind of predicated on supporting the other one. And and you want to bring in staffing changes that are going to do everything they possibly can to like support Jalen Hurts. I mean, first and foremost, you got to do that. You got to do that. The one good thing that I think in hiring a guy like Sean Mannion for offensive coordinator is that there's the possibility that he could be here for more than 1 year. 1 to 2, 3 years maybe. I know that 3 years is kind of jumping the gun a little bit. If you succeed in Philadelphia, like there's a high chance that you have somebody interviewing you for a head coaching position next season, and maybe that's so. Like if we go and like have a successful season, and we reach the NFC Championship game, or we even hell, if we even go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl again, there's a chance that the first year play caller could be brought in to be a head coach somewhere. But I personally believe that it's going to be I personally believe that this could be, at best case scenario, like a Shane Steichen situation. He's going to be here for a couple of years. The offense is going to look better. And then we're just going to have to go, go from there. And honestly, that goes back to the Josh Grizzard hiring. Is like, if we do well with Sean Mannion and he gets a head coaching opportunity, we could just promote Josh Grizzard, to be honest. I mean, technically, but here's the thing. Technically, is there's a lot of belief that if this doesn't go well, Nick Sirianni's on the hot seat. It seems like, and they were mentioning this on Jacob Media this morning, which is like, if these hires don't go well, like obviously they're giving Nick Sirianni, full control of the guys that he brings in, and they're making sure that like he puts out statements, whether it be the firing of or the hiring of staff, and that's a power play by Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. That's a power play. They're making sure that Nick Sirianni takes full responsibility on whether or not this thing fails or it succeeds. So the way that this plays out is gonna be very, very interesting. And obviously I hope for the best. Like I hope that the hiring of Sean Mannion, I hope that it plays out, and the hiring of Josh Grizzard, I hope it plays out. I don't think that they're done. I think that there's going to be a quarterback coach change as well. And possibly a new run game coordinator. So I mean, I'm sure that we're going to find more out within the next 24 hours. I assume. There's going to be more staffing changes. I assume, we're going to, I'm not sure when they're set to meet with the media, but, yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see what, Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard have to say about the opportunity to come and coach in Philadelphia. So, all in due time. So, here, let me see if we got any more updates to talk about here so far. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the bright spots, is like, we're not going to see hitch routes. Thank God we're not going to see hitch routes. I was so tired of watching, all the receivers run hitch routes on the same fucking play. It made absolutely no sense. And that's the other thing too, is apparently Packers fans were really upset that they let Sean Mannion walk, and they felt that like he was probably better suited to be the offensive coordinator than the guy that they have in there now. So I mean, that's another good thing. That's another good thing that, you know, whenever you can get, you know, positive buzz from the fan base, you know, that means a thing or two about it. That means a thing or two. Yeah, so let's go back all the way with Josh Grizzard's, you know, coaching experience. Let's see here. Well, he started off as a Carolina Panthers team operations intern in 2012, student assistant at Yale, graduate assistant and quality control coach at Duke from 2013 to 2016. Then with the Miami Dolphins from 2017 to 2018, offensive quality control coach. Miami Dolphins 2019 quality control coach. Miami Dolphins 2020 to 2021 wide receivers coach. 2022 to 2023 Miami Dolphins offensive quality control coach. 2024 he was the pass game coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past year, and now he goes back to being the pass game coordinator, but for the Philadelphia Eagles. So he's got a ton of experience. And honestly, over the last couple of years, you know, we've really, since he's been there, is where we've seen Baker Mayfield really kind of take off over the last couple of years with the Bucs. You know, obviously, like Baker's done an above average job ever since he's been with the Buccaneers. But which I think it was, Tom beat Jalen in 2021. Yeah, 2021 in the playoffs when Tom was with the Buccaneers. So I think post Tom, I think it was Baker, which was 2022. 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026. So technically, like, I will say Baker's been above average since he's been with the Bucs, just due to better coaching. But the last couple years, you know, ever since, and you can kind of point them, you know, you can kind of, you know, attach them to each other. Is Josh Grizzard been there the last couple years, and Baker's development seems to have taken quite a jump. So it's just interesting. It's just an interesting thing to note. You know, the other thing too is that, like we just mentioned in that experience, is Josh Grizzard is a former wide receivers coach for the Dolphins. You know, are the Eagles going to hold on to what was his name, Aaron Coley, or not Aaron Coley? Their current wide receivers coach. I don't remember. He used to be a Philadelphia wide receiver, but you know, are they going to hold on to them? Hold on to him? Is this going to be a complete? You know, everybody's already calling it a revamp of the offensive staff. It's not. It's not yet. You know, like two guys have been brought in. Two. It's not like it's been four. You know, if you want me to call it a revamp, I'll say, okay, we have a new offensive coordinator. Okay, we have a new pass game coordinator. Okay, let's go get a new run game coordinator, and QB coach. Scott Leffler, like, is he gonna stay? Is he gonna stay as the QB coach? Like, how did we think Jalen actually did this season? Jalen started off hot. That's another thing too. We have so many questions. You know, is Sean Mannion gonna want Jalen Hurts to run the ball? You know, And if not, are they going to be able to get the best out of Jalen in the passing game? This passing game should be at least be able to put up 250 plus per game. And they don't. And I hope that changes with, and that's not asking for a lot. It's really not asking for a lot. If Jalen puts up 250 a game and averages 50 on the ground per game, or 30 to 50 on the ground per game, we're most likely going to win that game. That goes to show that Jalen was moving the chains all game long. That's not asking for a lot, especially with the fact that you have a quarterback who claims that he's a triple threat, not just a double threat, but a triple threat. I'm not necessarily sure what the triple part is, but like, I want to see, I want to see some changes. Anyway, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. Tell me your thoughts on the two hirings. Sean Mannion as offensive coordinator, former Green Bay Packers quarterback coach, and then also Josh Grizzard, former Buccaneers offensive coordinator, as the pass game coordinator now in Philadelphia. I think the pairing is good. I like the pairing. I think the pairing is going to spell good things. I think there's a reason to have faith in these moves. I think there's a reason to have hope with these moves. But I also could see it as it being a high risk, high reward, not necessarily for the fan base or for the team or for Howie Roseman or for Jeffrey Lurie, but high risk, high reward for Nick Sirianni for sure. I think John McMullen on Jacob Media said that, the clock starts now for Nick Sirianni, and I couldn't agree more. They are doing everything they possibly can to make sure that he takes full responsibility for the coaching hires. And, maybe it was a Doug Peterson situation where Nick Sirianni was like, I want to conduct the search. I want to bring in the guys that I think is best. And Jeffrey Lurie was basically just like, okay. But do understand this, that if it fails, you're going out with them. So it will be very interesting to see what happens. But anyway, this is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. I appreciate you guys jumping in and joining. I will jump on a little bit later and do another live stream just to talk about a couple of other things. And if there's any emergency news or notes or updates that we have to kind of have to report right away in the moment. So, but I appreciate you. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Peace out. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Go Birds.